Now, from Monday, anyone arriving in the UK will have to go into quarantine for a fortnight. That's what the Home Secretary confirmed today. But the new plans have been heavily criticised by MPs on all sides, including senior Conservatives. Almost everyone will now have to self-isolate when they come to the UK. Priti Patel said that people in England could face a fine of up to £1,000 if they break the rules, or even face prosecution. She accepted the new policy would mean challenges for the tourism industry, but she said the measures were necessary to contain the virus and the country owed it to thousands of people who have died. It comes as 359 more deaths have been recorded in the UK in the last 24 hours. The death toll now stands at 39,728. Here's our transport correspondent, Tom Burridge.
The experience for people arriving into the UK is about to change. From Monday, almost everyone will be expected to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So what does it mean for holidays this summer? Should anyone be booking a holiday anywhere in Europe right now? What's your assessment? Are holidays abroad this summer going to happen?
You know what the Foreign Office guidance is. The guidance is that everybody at the moment should avoid non-essential travel. Everybody should avoid non-essential travel. We've got to knock this virus on the head.
So how will the quarantine work? Well, when you book your ticket for a plane, train or ferry abroad, you'll have to provide an address in the UK where you'll self-isolate when you return. When home, you'll have to spend 2 weeks at that address. Government officials will carry out random checks to see if people are self-isolating. Anyone who breaks the rules might have to pay a £1,000 fine. Enforcement rules might differ in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Airlines say the quarantine adds uncertainty, and the boss of one of the world's biggest travel websites told me Brits are looking but not booking.
We saw in UK a lot of searches of people, Britons that want to travel outside, but they are not booking like in the other country because they don't know what will happen when they have to come back.
Tens of thousands of people travelled into the UK during the lockdown. The government insists the quarantine wouldn't have been effective at the height of the pandemic because any cases imported wouldn't have had any real impact on the overall prevalence of the virus. Labour and Conservative backbenchers disagree.
Unfortunately, like too much of the Home Office handling of this crisis, the management of arrivals to the United Kingdom has lacked urgency and coherence.
I'm afraid I simply cannot get my head around the public health mental gymnastics of this policy. If such a barrier was required, why was it not introduced earlier in the outbreak?
Portugal wants Brits to travel there this summer and says it's negotiating with the UK so by July people might not have to self-isolate when they travel home. Tom Burridge, BBC News.
Our chief political correspondent Vicky Young is in Westminster, and a lot of questions about whether this quarantine plan is actually enforceable.
Yeah, I mean, many Conservative MPs I spoke to today are pretty perplexed about why this is going ahead. They're not sure that it is enforceable. They think the timing is illogical because the UK has more cases than most other European countries. And they are very concerned about job losses in the aviation industry and in the tourism sector. Now, even Theresa May, the former Prime Minister, pitched in. She said this amounted to closing off Britain from the rest of the world. But Downing Street is determined to press ahead. They think it will be effective. They think people want these extra measures. They want to stop reinfection. Now, there will be a review at the end of the month. Many MPs looking for some flexibility there. But certainly, as things stand, a real question mark over a foreign summer holiday this summer.
And we saw MPs in the House of Commons tonight, though, news of another cabinet minister who was there today now having to self-isolate.
Yeah, that's right. This is the Business Secretary, Alok Sharma. Now, you can see him here in the House of Commons at the dispatch box. Clearly something not right. He is wiping sweat from his face throughout this speech. Now, a spokesman said that he started to feel unwell in the chamber. He did then leave. He is self-isolating. He's been tested for coronavirus but hasn't got the result left yet. Many MPs have seized on this. They don't think they should have been forced back to Parliament. They want to carry on working remotely. Now, the Commons authorities say they followed all the procedures. They've done extra cleaning, all the things you're supposed to do if there's a suspected COVID case. I have spoken to the minister who sat next to Alok Sharma most of today, and he said they were They were distancing, social distancing at all times.
Vicky Young, thank you. The Prime Minister pledged last month that the UK would have a world-beating test and trace system up and running by the 1st of June, capable of tracking 10,000 new cases a day. But the woman who's been put in charge of it told MPs today that she couldn't say what proportion of tests come back in 24 hours or how many people have been contact traced, because the scheme has only been up and running for 6 days and the data's not been validated. Here's our health editor, Hugh Pym.
If you test positive, NHS Test and Trace will contact you to trace people you might have infected.
With the government advertising the new tracing system in England, there's a continuing debate over whether it's actually working. Some contact tracers, hired to call people who've met those who tested positive, say they've had nothing to do since the launch last Thursday, including one who wanted to be anonymous, who spoke to the BBC's Victoria Derbyshire.
It's frustrating to know that I am sat idle when there is people that need contacting. I can't understand why we haven't had any contacts.
And the issue was raised at Prime Minister's questions.
The Prime Minister promised that we will have a test, track and trace operation that will be world-beating. And yes, it will be in place by the 1st of June. But it isn't.
As a result of our test, track and trace system, which was up and running on the 1st of June, as I said, Mr. Speaker, contrary to what he said, which was up and running, as a result of their efforts, thousands of people are now following our guidance.
There were also heated parliamentary exchanges about testing for the virus, with a Commons Select Committee pressing the system's boss to tell them how many results came back within 24 hours.
I don't think there's any citizen service of this scale that would launch and within 6 days share 24-hour turnaround data.
The chair was not impressed.
That just can't be right. That you're telling me you don't actually know how many tests come back within 24 hours and you're in charge of NHS Test and Trace.
No, I have not had the data validated by the...
So you've got data but it's not been validated?
I have not had the data validated by the authority who has expressed concern over previous testing data.
Rob, who's in a care home, had to wait 3 weeks for a result after one test was invalid because of a long delay and had to be repeated. It was negative, but a friend told me the experience had been upsetting.
I just feel really angry because he hasn't got a voice. The home have been absolutely brilliant, but it's just the length of time waiting has been, really traumatic on him as a vulnerable person.
The Prime Minister said by the end of June all test results will be back in 24 hours, but trials of a smartphone tracing app are continuing. Billed as a key part of the system, it may now not go live for several more weeks. Hugh Pym, BBC News.